Amal and George, the Clooney Foundation for Justice, have just filed a lawsuit against the Archewell Foundation, the charity run by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This was not a warning letter, not a private mediation, a lawsuit, and the accusations are blunt: false endorsement, implied partnership, unfair competition, donor diversion. That's legal language for something very simple. You used our name, our reputation, and our credibility to raise your money. This isn't celebrity drama. This is paperwork with consequences. Because lawsuits like this don't get filed unless the evidence is already stacked, labeled, and timestamped. No one with Amal Clooney's legal resume walks into federal court hoping for vibes and sympathy. They walk in with receipts, and the moment this was filed, the illusion cracked. Before we continue, please kindly subscribe. We are on a journey to reach 1,000 subscribers in less than 2 weeks, and we're counting on you. Like, comment, and hit on the notification bell. The illusion many people had that Hollywood philanthropy is one big friendly alliance of good intentions. Because in reality, behind the smiling galas and Instagram captions, this was always a competition, and now it's a war on record. Let's start from the beginning of this drama so you understand much better. So, Hollywood charity runs on perception, not outcomes, not metrics. Perception: who you stand next to, whose jet you're seen on, whose logo appears near yours, even if no one ever signed a contract. And that's the game Archewell entered the moment Harry and Meghan landed in California. They didn't arrive quietly. They arrived attached to legacy, royal proximity, media attention, and elite access. And for a while, it worked beautifully. They were photographed alongside the Clooneys. They stayed at Clooney properties. George Clooney publicly defended Meghan, comparing her treatment to Princess Diana. That comparison alone carried nuclear weight because when George Clooney speaks, donors listen. And when Amal Clooney is nearby, legitimacy is assumed. And here's where the problem begins. In philanthropy, assumption is currency. No one really needs to say we are partners if everyone already believes you are. No press release has to lie outright. It just has to suggest, a logo here, a phrase there, a name dropped in the right paragraph. That's not accidental, that's strategy. And according to this lawsuit, Archewell knew exactly what it was doing. Because when donors believe two powerhouses are aligned, they open their wallets faster and ask fewer questions. The first cracks didn't come from headlines, they came from emails. By 2022, donors attending Archewell-related events started asking a strange question. So how are you and the Clooney Foundation working together on this? There was just one problem: they weren't. No agreement, no collaboration, no joint campaign. Yet Archewell materials were circulating that read like partnerships existed. CFJ initiatives referenced casually. At one fundraiser, Archewell distributed materials that name-dropped Clooney Foundation work as if it were shared ground. Donors assumed collaboration. They always do, because no one imagines a foundation would be bold enough to imply an alliance without permission. But that assumption is exactly what this lawsuit says Archewell exploited. By 2023, archived versions of Archewell's website listed the Clooney Foundation for Justice as a like-minded organization in global justice campaigns. No consent, no approval, no acknowledgement that this wasn't a partnership, just proximity weaponized. Inside Clooney Foundation circles, tolerance shifted into alarm because this wasn't just about branding. This was about credibility contamination, and that's where this story gets uncomfortable. Let's be clear about one thing: the Clooney Foundation for Justice did not file this lawsuit to make noise. They filed it to end something. This case isn't dressed up in emotional language or celebrity grievance. It's cold, it's technical, and it's devastating. False endorsement under the Lamb Act, unfair competition, marketplace deception. That's not tabloid law, that's corporate-level litigation. The filing argues that Archewell didn't just benefit from confusion, it engineered it. Through visual proximity, language mimicry, and strategic silence, donors were led to believe they were supporting a united front in global justice. And here's the part that changes everything. The Clooney Foundation didn't send a cease and desist. They didn't ask for quiet corrections. They didn't call in favors. They sued. Because by the time this reached Amal Clooney's desk, it was no longer fixable with edits and apologies. It had become provable harm. Emails, metadata, donor affidavit, trademark registrations. This lawsuit isn't speculative, it's surgical. And when a foundation, led by one of the world's most respected human rights lawyers, decides to make something public, it's because silence has become more dangerous than exposure. Let's stop dancing around it. This lawsuit exists because money moved. High net worth donors, tech executives, entertainment power brokers, corporate sponsors began redirecting funds. Why? Because they believed Archewell was operating with the Clooney Foundation for justice, not adjacent, not inspired, aligned. One donor affidavit tells the story plainly. A seven-figure pledge redirected after attending an event where Archewell banners placed CFJ logos nearby, visually implying endorsement. Another donor received Archewell solicitations referencing aligned missions with leaders in justice language donors reasonably interpreted as a nod to George and Amal Clooney. By the time CFJ clarified behind the scenes, the money was already gone. Forensic accounting cited in the lawsuit traces a 15% drop in CFJ pledges directly correlated with overlapping campaigns and donor outreach. This is why the claim isn't emotional, it's economic. False endorsement under the LAN Act isn't about hurt feelings, it's about marketplace deception. And in this market, credibility is the product. Archewell didn't need to outperform CFJ. They just needed to stand close enough to absorb the glow. And according to the filings, that's exactly what happened. Hollywood doesn't cancel loudly, it withdraws. No invitations, no mentions, no callbacks. And once this lawsuit hit, the distancing that had been whispered about for years suddenly made sense. The Sussexes weren't just facing a legal challenge. They were facing social isolation. They were noticeably absent from the Albie Awards, the Clooney Foundation's flagship event celebrating real justice work, an omission that wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. George Clooney, once publicly defensive of Meghan Markle, had already shifted years earlier. By 2023, his now infamous "I don't know her" moment signaled something had snapped. Behind closed doors, elite donors began asking new questions, not about causes, but about credibility. And credibility is everything. Power players don't want drama attached to their philanthropy. They want stability, discretion, and clarity. This lawsuit injected uncertainty into Archewell's brand, the worst possible outcome in donor-driven spaces. Meanwhile, the Clooneys moved differently. They strengthened institutional ties. They appeared at legacy charity events. They aligned upward, not outward. This wasn't about choosing sides emotionally. It was about choosing who survives reputational scrutiny, and Hollywood made its choice quietly. This lawsuit sends a message that cannot be misunderstood. You don't get to borrow institutional credibility without permission. You don't get to blur lines when money is involved. And you don't get to weaponize proximity to cover operational vagueness. Donors are watching this case closely, because if false endorsement can move millions quietly, then trust itself becomes unstable. And that's why this case matters far beyond Harry and Meghan. It forces a reckoning. How many foundations are selling alignment instead of results? How many causes are being diluted by branding games? How often has inspired by crossed into copied from? This lawsuit doesn't just expose Archewell, it threatens a system that thrives on ambiguity. There's a phrase lawyers understand better than anyone else. Paper remembers what people try to forget. This story began with borrowed jets, borrowed access, borrowed proximity, but it didn't end there. Because borrowed power, when left unchecked, always demands repayment. Sometimes in money, sometimes in reputation, and sometimes in a courtroom where silence no longer protects you. The Clooney Foundation for Justice didn't raise its voice, it raised its standards. And when those standards were crossed, it responded the only way institutions do when credibility is threatened with documentation, discipline, and consequence. As 2026 unfolds, discovery is looming. Emails will surface, boardroom discussions will be dissected, decisions once framed as branding will be reframed as intent, settlements may come, apologies may be drafted. But something irreversible has already happened. The illusion is broken. Celebrity philanthropy has been forced to look in the mirror, and the reflection isn't filtered. For Harry and Meghan, this lawsuit isn't just a legal challenge. It's a referendum on their post-royal identity. For the Clooneys, it's a line drawn not in anger, but in principle. And for everyone watching, this is a reminder that truth doesn't trend, it files. And discovery hasn't even begun yet.